Giles, the UK is a cold, drafty, damp place where people like to drink tea. On those grounds, I would think if you were in the gas distribution business, you'd stay right where you were. National Grid has decided otherwise. It has sold its gas distribution business. So, why, for how much, to whom, and what are they going to do with the money? You don't have to answer those questions in that order, but...
I'll answer a fifth one first of all, which is this stuff about us needing gas. In fact, gas production has kind of peaked, or gas consumption in this country. It peaked around 1998. It's been steady. We've been able to make about the same amount of tea with the same amount of gas. So this is not a growth area, and that probably answers your why. I mean, the pipes that you need to deliver gas, unlike electricity or communications equipment, don't need to be upgraded all that often. It's a steady, non-growth business. And National Grid, they like to be a growth business.
Which is funny, because I would think, first of all, I don't think of utilities generally as growth businesses. And I think that for any business in this environment, a reasonably well-yielding asset when we have suppressed bond yields would be very appealing.
It's appealing, it's nice to have it, but other people might want it more. And that moves to another of your questions. To whom? Well, there are private equity, sovereign wealth fund, pension fund kind of people who want long-term exposure to reliably yielding assets, who will pay more than the equity holders would through the National Grid stock price. So these are people who want a steady return because they're tired of Janet Yellen and Mark Carney giving them 0.5% or whatever it is nowadays.
Yes.
And they'll value it more because they can apply a bit more leverage than
Yes, I
National
knew
Grid
that this story was going to come to a financial engineering.
Yeah, exactly.
Financial engineering. So they sell it to somebody who needs a yield, a bond substitute, and who can lever the heck out of it, which a regulated business probably can't.
Yeah, that's
so
exactly it.
How much money are we talking about?
Well,
then?
it's worth on the balance sheet $8.5 billion, which is, and that's all of it. They're not going to sell all of it necessarily. They said just a majority. So let's say, I don't know, they're hoping to sell maybe 51% of it, which we think might be worth about $5.5 billion, or in other words, $11 billion for the whole of it. Now, this is because there is that discount between what a stock market investor will pay for this thing through the company and these standalone investors will do. So 20–30% discount.
So now we have $5.5 billion, say, in our hot little hands at National Grid. What do we do with it?
Well, this is where it's slightly confusing, because you'd have thought growth companies like to use their cash to get new acquisitions, invest organically, do something like this. They want to give it back. They want to give it back to their investors. And that's what we're trying to puzzle over here at Lex. Is this because they think their investors have got better growth ideas than them, or is this growth story a little more sort of dull than you might expect from a typical growth stock?
Well, of course, at Lex, we like these dull stories. We want maximized returns, and whether something is a growth asset or a value asset, if you were, shouldn't really matter ultimately.
Yeah, they all pay the bills.
Optimize the assets that you have.
And National Grid has been really good at this. Since 2010, it's up sort of 60–70%. The FTSE's done nothing. It's now yielding about 5%. That's a great stock to be owning if they can keep it going. So for National Grid, growth means keeping this kind of a good story going for a few years yet. And there's every sign that they can. They're good at turning these relatively dull businesses into cash-generating machines. They're doing it in the UK with electricity. They're doing it in North East America too. So they think they can do it without the need for very much more cash, and let's see if they can.
All right, time for a cup of tea, Giles.
Indeed.